What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Tech Backstage. My name's Eddie Hudson, along with my co-host Tullio Siragusa, and our guest for today, Andrew Zeck, CTO at Saucey. Andrew, thanks for joining us. How you doing?
I'm doing great, guys. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks for being on the show,
Love the
Tullio.
name.
Yeah,
I love the name.
me too. I do too. Tullio, how you doing?
Doing great. Living the life in Southern California, sunny Southern California.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy. Cool.
They've
All
cut
right.
half the trees around my house today, and I'm feeling a little sad, like something's missing. But other than that, it's a great day.
And no like cedar fever or anything like we get in Texas?
Cedar fever? What is that?
It's from the trees, man. It's the allergies from the trees.
I'm mostly concerned about the ants
Oh.
colonies figuring their way into the house. That's what I'm preparing for.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's
Anyways,
a topic
yeah.
for another day.
So, Andrew, CTO of Saucey, you guys, I think, for lack of a better term, are a adult beverage delivery application. But before we dive into that, because I'm excited about this topic, it's near and dear to my heart. Love to hear a little bit about you. Maybe talk about your origin story a little bit and how you got to Saucey.
Of course, yeah, very cool. So I graduated from Full Sail University in their game dev program. My goal, when I got into the workforce was to be in the games industry, which I started out just developing mobile games for a very small startup called ICS Mobile in Santa Monica, California. That was basically at the dawn of the iPhone 2008. So I really got my feet wet in mobile development very, very early on. That was back when it was all Objective-C, pre-Swift days. Taught myself Objective-C, developed a couple pretty fun tower defense games that kind of got high in the charts in the early App Store days. This was iOS 2.0. And then really kind of just stepped foot into the mobile industry and went on to another company that was pretty successful called Text Plus. They did messaging, video calls, allowed basically any number to text an SMS number from our application. And I ended up leading their team of iOS engineers there. That's where I met my two co-founders. Then we all started Saucey in basically early 2014. I started as the sole engineer and the technical co-founder with my CEO, Chris Vaughn, and Chief Operating Officer, Dan Lieb. And we've basically been together ever since, just grinding away and trying to, make beer, wine, and spirits delivery as delightful and pleasant as possible. Bring it to the masses basically all over the United States. Working on some, possible international expansion plans this year as well.
Awesome.
So, I've been basically just doing that for the last 8 years of my life. Yeah.
That's incredible. Well, that's got to be fun. Quick question, though. What drove you to go from being a mobile engineer to founding a startup? Because that's a pretty big jump.
I had absolutely no idea what I was getting myself into. By the
Right.
way, I basically,
the brutal honesty. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, I'd always, loved tinkering. I had, done prototypes, working with just on, basically everyone and their uncle has an app idea and they want to see if you can develop it for them. But I think it really got serious when Chris came to me with a presentation deck because we were all getting kind of bored at Text Plus. We felt like maybe we had kind of achieved, our upward, mobile trajectory in our careers there. And I was actually really inspired by the founders of that company, Zach Norman, Scott Lehman. They've been serial entrepreneurs and were just absolutely, fantastic executives. So we got the startup bug, kind of just working there in that company, watching it grow from 20 employees to 100 plus employees in the span of a couple years. And I think we saw an opportunity in this space, right kind of at the dawn of Uber, where, now delivery is ubiquitous. You can get anything delivered from basically a whole host of applications nowadays. But in 2014, it was still pretty novel that you could get drinks delivered. And a lot of people are like, is this legal?
That was my question. Is it legal now?
It is legal now. Yeah. So we actually, and that's another huge challenge and component of the business is compliance, right? Because after the Prohibition era ended in the United States, every state was kind of left to their own devices to craft how they were going to regulate the sale of alcohol. And you see that now with, some dry counties that still exist in Texas and around the north. There are some, states that only have state-run liquor stores, right? They don't operate, let private individuals operate liquor stores, which is kind of insane when you come from out of state and see that's how it operates. So each state has very different and specific laws. And I think the very first thing that we tried to do was get in touch with someone at the ABC, which is the Alcohol Beverage Control Board in California, and basically just try to vet the idea and make sure that we were in full compliance with the law being able to do this, because, liquor stores have delivered for many years, just like grocery stores have delivered for many years, but no one had ever put it on a mobile application where it was very easy to do until, just about 8 years ago. Right. So that was something that really got me excited. And I started to prototype it with those guys on nights and weekends. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So I was going to say, so you guys you're working as a lead iOS developer at Text Plus.
Yep.
And then you and a couple guys from Text Plus decide kind of bravely, because this app has compliance issues that you guys have to deal with. So you guys go out and start an app, but you're not, you're CTO, co-founder from the beginning, but you're also the dude building it, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that journey.
It was fully insane, and I wouldn't recommend that anyone under the age of or over the age of 30 tried to attempt it. I was 26 at the time, and the way that it worked was we had absolutely no funding, no money, so we were just prototyping and trying to prove the concept and see how many users we could get. I was living in West Hollywood, California at the time. I was programming the application all day, and then Chris was trying to get users in stores to sign up. Once we got some users in the door for our official beta program, I was doing deliveries all night. So I was the sole delivery driver and the sole developer of the application. So I was...
Talk about commitment.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
By the way, I'm 51 and I'll run circles around any 20-year-olds in terms of productivity and getting things done. Anybody here will attest to that. But in any case,
hey, I'm not saying it's crazy.
No, I get it. That's crazy. So you're building the app and you're doing the inventory and you're doing the delivery.
Yep.
Wow.
It was just so extremely hands-on, but it was also so extremely exciting because it was our own thing. No one was telling us what to do. We were just having to figure it out all along the way. And I think that was, what kept me going, early on. Like, we tried to make it as cool and of like a white glove experience as possible. We had bottle tags that we would hand stamp with like little drinking quotes from like Winston Churchill. We tagged those with Saucey. We got a lot of early viral buzz on that. We started to work with some companies in the area to try to like create like splashes, basically, where we would get some press. The first one we really got a lot of press on was we worked with a company called Me Undies, and we had underwear models delivering alcohol to your door. So probably one of my favorite company moments was when I got to drive the models around to go do deliveries, which is probably not a lot of, software engineers get to do that in their careers. So
right.
So one of the highlights in mine.
Yeah, that's definitely not something you typically see in like a dev shop for sure.
No.
Yeah. So, okay. So you guys have been around 8 years now. Love your origin story too, especially going to Full Sail, place near and dear to my heart, especially, since I was an audio engineer before, but I love kind of the non-traditional path to starting a company. And we could probably even turn this podcast less into about Saucey and more about just starting a business 101. But we're here to focus on Saucey today.
Sure.
and what you guys do at Saucey. So, tell me a little bit about, where you guys are at right now. This is a mobile application. And I know you guys have web stuff too, but I'm really interested to understand kind of your, outside of the compliance journey, but also, the mobile app landscape and the environment. It's heavily regulated by both Apple and Google as well. And, up until, the creators of, what was it, Fortnite, decided to take on Apple. You had to run payments through the Apple, through the Apple financial system. Same thing on the Google side. So, besides the fact that you were the delivery driver, the lead iOS engineer, the CTO and co-founder, and you guys were dealing with the California ABC for compliance issues, how'd you guys get from like that initial stage all the way to, where you're able to, turn this into, because it's been 8 years now, to turn it into a viable business and, continue onward?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that I would have told my younger self at the time was that you have absolutely no idea how to fundraise, and that is, still, I think one of the biggest challenges, especially a company like ours faces, is that not only is it a competitive industry, but actually a lot of VCs have restrictions on what they can't and can invest in, right? So
I
sometimes alcohol gets lumped into like adult gambling and
Entertainment.
some restrictions that LPs actually have on their funds
Yeah.
where you literally can't
Yeah.
invest in. So immediately sometimes that already reduces your opportunities to a select few groups. But we were incredibly lucky and fortunate, and our CEO Chris is just such a fantastic spokesperson for the company. You can find some videos and interviews that he's done online for a lot of different times in the company's history. He led the charge in that completely. I was just kind of like always a fly in the wall in those meetings, just trying to advocate for this is how we're doing it, this is what we're working on. I could always speak very well to the technical aspects of the business, which don't seem too complex on the surface, but once you get logistically under the hood, get a way more complex. And we could talk about how we were at one time a driver marketplace. We can talk about the offshoot that we started in 2018 called MJ, which is our cannabis delivery arm, which we then merged back into the business. So I think there's just a ton to talk about there, but fundraising has always been historically a challenge. I think it always is for companies. And it's always really difficult to get your idea in front of the right people. And but once you do unlock capital, that is how you grow. And the goal that we have has always been this steady, disciplined approach to growth, where we're you'll see a lot of unicorn startups, or people that are attempting to be unicorns just blow through cash, in a very short amount of time, trying to grow as fast as possible. I think we've always tried to make a very disciplined approach to, how can we stay basically break even or in the black the entire time so that we have, the runway to do the things that we want to do.
Yeah.
And that's not something that a lot of startups, try to do from the onset, but it was a lesson that we learned very early on.
Yep.
So, Andrew, I want to take us to the topic a little bit to explore that a little further, and I'll bring some context to my question. Back in the 80s, EDI became a big thing between retailers. For the panacea was to get to just-in-time inventory. A lot of wastage happened because poor inventory management, poor supply chain system. All that has changed and evolved over the past 30 years. Where now you have just-in-time inventory for very large retailers, et cetera. So, most of that technology was not built for these kinds of application. In fact, it's not open to these kinds of application. But you guys have basically tackled on the challenge of just-in-time inventory because ultimately you're delivering a service and a product to people within 30 minutes. And I'm curious how you guys build in the connection to the inventory so that you know what's available. Are you guys warehousing the alcohol yourself? Are you using third parties? How are you integrating that in just so that you have full visibility of what is available and what isn't? Because I know when I shop on Instacart, sometimes you order something and they don't have it in the store. I don't understand why they haven't figured out that inventory challenge. And it's so annoying when that happens. So I'm just curious if you guys have figured out how to solve that.
So that's actually, honestly, a great question. It is one of the most difficult parts of the business, for sure, because not only are you not able to plug in through a lot of these, stores inventory with an API, they might even have such outdated systems that their POS isn't even connected to the internet. So some guys are actually still doing, math on the back of a cigarette carton for, what they have in stock, right? That's no lie. That's a real
The
experience.
local bodega doesn't have a supply chain system, huh?
No. So, we early on, we realized that we had to build a lot of tools for these retailers just to make sure that our business was running efficiently as well, right? So early on, I realized that, oh my God, I've got to build another application that just allows stores to manage their order flow and manage their inventory from a terminal right there at the cash register, because not every store had an online POS. And even the ones that do, aren't really that easy to integrate. So we built an iPad application for vendors to manage their order flow. We have been really working hard lately on different ETL pipelines where essentially we can install a script on a terminal there that will upload hourly inventory to our FTP server. And then we basically run a bunch of batch Lambda jobs that have custom rule sets, because all these POSs spit out, files in vastly different formats. Some spit out multiple files. Some retailers have chains and networks where they only give you one master file that associates, with many different stores. So it's a huge challenge to the business, and it's a really big technical challenge that, I think not even, the big guys like Instacart have fully figured out. So we try to keep our inventory as up to date and as accurate as possible, but there's always, the case where there's going to be an out of stock item, or they're not managing their inventory and their POS correctly. And in that case, we do allow the customer to provide a substitution directly the moment a retailer rejects an item. So we'll send a text to the customer with a link where they can go through a substitution flow. Some delivery services just have the driver text you back, hey, do you want this instead? We've tried to streamline that process as much as possible and reduce all the friction there. But I think we still have a long way to go in terms of getting everyone on the same system. In the ideal world, we would be able to dictate to the independent retailer, you have to use this POS. This is the only one we support, but that's not realistic, right? So you have to come up with workarounds in every single situation.
But that's the disruption, in my opinion, right? Especially from a delivery service or an inventory management service, is figuring that out. Have you guys thought? I mean, it sounds as though you've invested a lot of time and energy to solve that problem. Is that, I know you're in the delivery of alcohol business, but is that something you guys have thought about? Well, if we figure this out, we could potentially license this capability, because there's a lot of money to be made in licensing that piece of software. Just the thought, has that crossed your mind? What do you guys think about that?
Absolutely. It's definitely crossed our mind, and it's definitely something that we've been trying to always, figure out what is the most generic solution possible that, we can apply to as many stores as possible. I would say we are not there yet. And I would also say that early on, it wasn't a huge focus in the business, because what we tried to do, which is unlike a lot of other players in the space that are basically just marketplaces, is that we tried to work with as few stores as possible in the best geographically located areas in the city that made the most sense for delivery. Because what we were trying to do, since we ran all of our own courier forces in the early years, was trying to get as many orders per hour, a courier delivering 2 to 3 orders per hour, and just kind of making loops back to the store. So as orders came in, they're always on demand. Our target goal is to try to get it there in under 30 minutes, which is not easy to do, especially in a lot of major cities. If you've ever driven in Los Angeles, it's not an easy task, right? Or New York City, right? Yeah. So actually, a lot of the technical focus early on in the business was, how do we manage on-demand delivery in the most optimal way possible? And a lot of that was making automated route decisions for couriers. A huge component of that was building our own courier application, which we actually had to do for compliance, to scan customers' ID at the point of delivery, right? So early on, we were building a lot of tools for drivers too. And then when the driver marketplace started to become super competitive, we had to compete with services like DoorDash and Uber to retain and keep on great drivers. So that was a huge amount of my focus, probably I want to say from 2015 to 2019. In 2019, we made the decision that it was way more cost efficient and easier to expand if we did work with third-party DSPs, which are delivery service providers like DoorDash and Uber Eats, and we could syndicate orders to them as well. But at the end of the day, we we were managing this, I would call 3 different businesses: our e-commerce business, our driver marketplace business, and the way that we do inventory control and management and basic retailer support. So it's not your traditional startup, right?
Yeah.
Well,
No,
that's
and
what
it
makes it so cool and disruptive is that you do that.
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's a complex, it's not just you guys aren't building a single product. You're actually building kind of an ecosystem of, different pieces of technology that integrate together. You have your inventory, like you said, your ETLs and how
Yep.
you guys manage the data. You have the driver side, you have the client side. So it's not just a single product. You said something that I want to kind of circle back to and I want to touch on, because I spend a lot of time in Mexico, and lately the delivery services here have added my least favorite feature of all time, which is the multiple deliveries per driver feature. And when you're waiting for food, you being third in line is always my least favorite thing. But you touched on the point of, you guys work with kind of a curated list of vendors, right?
Yep.
And so for me, that alludes to the fact that you guys are quality over quantity as a company. But I'm interested, how does that permeate into the rest of the application? Are you guys doing, how do you manage, multiple deliveries? How do you manage kind of the rest of the, I guess the final mile stuff, to make sure that drivers are paid competitively, to make sure that customers are getting their orders on time? How do you guys juggle all that and keep it all in line?
Well, we have 2 big advantages from the onset of just how the business works, right? No food prep. Every
Okay.
product that's being delivered is off of a shelf.
Yep.
The second portion of it is that we do put a little bit of onus on the retailer to pack and prep the order, right? So that once the order is ready to go and the courier is dispatched, the courier can ensure that they can just pick the order up and get out the door, right? So that really improves speed and efficiency from the onset. The second part of that, I think, is curating a list of what we think are the best and most popular sellers, the biggest movers across all different categories, and making sure that the stores carry those, right? Like if I open up the application and I can't find Jack Daniels or Bold Bourbon or just some of the main staples, as a customer, I'm never going to use you guys again, right? I'm never going to
Right.
open the application again if the very first time I don't see what I want, right? So I think that catering to kind of like the masses first and then honing in a little bit more specific on the connoisseurs has helped us capture a good market share of customers, because alcohol is such a widely diverse space, right? You have the wine moms that drink the Sauv Blancs at 4 p.m. You have the whiskey connoisseurs, that, only buy some top shelf stuff. You have the average beer drinker. You have the office planner. You have, the frat boy, right? Like you have all these different customer profiles. And what we try to do is kind of identify, where we see these behaviors in drinking and how we can best serve people who, basically alcohol is the stat is every bottle of wine that's purchased, 80% of that is consumed within 24 hours. So alcohol by itself is on demand and also spontaneous. And that's why it aligns so well with on-demand delivery. So,
Right.
If you're having a party and you run out, 1, you shouldn't be driving. 2, if you can get restocked immediately in less than 30 minutes, you're going to be a hero. So like there's a lot of natural kind of inclinations in consumer behavior that just have really benefited us in the long run.
Okay. Cool. So we got about 5 or 6 minutes left here, and before we do kind of the wrap up, I'd love to talk a little bit about what's next for Saucey. Like, what do you guys see for the future? Like, I think you got a Quest headset in the background, and I have a Quest headset over here. Not that I'm like stalking your background, but like you're obviously a future tech guy as well. So like I'm
You guys are
interested to
totally geeking out on me.
yeah, sorry, dude. It's AR VR stuff, but like what's next? Where do you guys see this going in the future, and like what are you excited about?
Yeah.
Can I
So
just make a comment real quick before you go there?
Sure.
When you were describing the personas, I was imagining being part of your marketing team. How fun is that? Like designing the personas and the customer journey for the frat boy. I mean, come on. I mean, that's gotta be fun.
I would say good marketers and growth people apply inside, right? Like that we're always looking for great people on that team because, I think it's super fun to work on. And very early on in the company days, the growth team was us 3 founders, and we would send one push on a Friday night, and we would get drunk and try to come up with the funniest possible push notification. And that's also how we got a lot of customer loyalty, right?
The personas.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's incredibly fun.
Could you imagine how the people who sell cannabis come up with the personas? Well, we're not.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the serious question Eddie asked.
Yeah. I was trying to keep it PG, Tullio, but if you guys want to actually like go there, let's do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, it's a podcast.
We're all adults here. So,
right.
No, of course, I think, for the future, obviously my office doubles as my game room as well. I'm still incredibly, passionate about video games. That's kind of my hobby on the side. But, for Saucey, I think really, we're exploring a lot of different ways of how we can improve, the logistics of the business. And I think the biggest, hurdle that we have to jump over is, and the one that we've always been trying to work towards, is instead of working with an independent retailer network, how do we operate our own delivery depots and source all the inventory ourselves, which is incredibly capitally intensive, requires, a retail space, requires specific permitting. It's an incredibly long and difficult process, but the end goal, would really to be having all of Saucey operate out of our own independent stores, know exactly what the customer wants, be able to predict what the customer wants, and then be also to offer some private label offerings of, really popular beers and wines that we think people would love, right? So if you think of how Netflix started, right? They just started listing all the popular shows. They analyzed the consumer behavior, and then they started to build their own content around what people were watching. I think doing the same thing in the alcohol industry space is basically would be, that's the vision, right? That's where we'd like to go. And we think that providing fast, efficient, awesome delivery with a great list of products and an easy, customer UX is how we get there. Yeah.
Cool.
All right. We're up on time, but we're curious. This has been an interesting journey for you from basically accidental entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
What have you learned about yourself through this process? I'm always curious to see how entrepreneurs are evolving their own selves as leaders, as persons. What's sort of the wisdom you'd like to share with those who might be on the fence thinking about doing it, that are scared to do it, but maybe they'll gain something that's not just building a product and making money from it, but actually personal gratification or growth. What have you learned from this experience about yourself?
I think that you can't go it alone. You need people that complement your skill sets and people that you trust and actually like working with. That's been, the biggest kind of discovery, is just, I'm still incredibly good friends with the co-founders. We have, really productive dialogues usually all the time. But if you're not ready to commit 110%, don't do it. Don't, if you're not, ready to work the 15-hour days, which sometimes is absolutely required. If you're not willing to deal with the outages on the weekends, if you're not willing to actually personally look through customer complaints, bugs that come across your desk, you have to be so intimately involved in what you're doing that it's basically like it becomes subconscious, right? So that level of hands-on kind of dedication is the only way that you can, I think, build a successful business. And for a lot of people, it's nice to be able to clock out at a certain time. I think, in the tech world, there's a lot of talk about burnout and, churn and how it's, difficult to work at a lot of fast-paced companies. But like, take that and multiply it times 5. And that's what starting a business is like. and also maintain it and trying to, make it grow. It's so much more effort than you could possibly think of as an individual contributor on a team at a, job, that you need to fully like think about it and bathe in that, what that level of commitment is like before you go do it. Otherwise you may get in over your head very, very quickly. So
sounds like what I heard is you got to love the grind. You have to love the hustle, the grind, and you got to love the work.
And you have to be passionate
Otherwise,
about,
stay home.
you have to be passionate about what you're doing too. If you don't like your product, if it's not personally attractive or you think it's cool, then you also shouldn't work on it. Because like me, I'm a big beer drinker. I have enjoyed alcohol, for a very long time. And this business was kind of just a dream come true, really. So that had a huge, factor in, helping me to kind of always dedicate myself to growing the business and making it successful.
I have to admit, Andrew, you've proven me wrong. I wrote a blog a few years ago about what is the ultimate outcome if your favorite thing to do is drinking alcohol or drinking beer. And here you go. You've proven me wrong that you actually can turn that into a business opportunity. You can turn that passion into a business opportunity.
Of course. All
joking aside, we're very impressed with what you're doing, and what an amazing journey, 8 years of grinding and doing whatever it takes. I'm personally excited about the disruption you're creating on the technology side. I think that has long-term implications that could be licensed elsewhere, or certainly make you a great acquisition target, not just for the delivery service of the product you're offering, but the just-in-time inventory challenge that has yet to be truly solved in this space. So looks like you guys are pretty close to it. We wish you a lot of success with that. Please keep us posted. If you crack the code on that, we want to know about it.
Yeah,
absolutely will do. Yeah, of course.
Cool.
All right, stay with us as we go off the air in just a second. Carlos, let's call our producer. We got one more show this week, right? What do we got coming up tomorrow?
You're on mute.
Thank you. I apologize for
there
that.
We go.
I mean, it's my trademark, right? Carlos, the mute guy. Tomorrow, we're going to be speaking with Marcus Wesden, the general manager at PAR Data Central. PAR is a software and hardware solutions company. So that's what we only have one more show this week. So join us tomorrow right here on Tech Backstage at 11 o'clock in the morning Pacific time. So don't miss it. Be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. See you back tomorrow. Andrew, stay with us and just as we go off the air. Thanks.
Thanks, y'all. Bye.